saying, were you hearing me before?
Prior to that, no. So
okay.
the squelch was set too high.
Up again?
That's mine.
So you're adjusting my volume with this?
No, not volume, squelch. So when we stop talking, I don't hear anything. Watch. So there's a circuit that turns off our mic when all it hears is background noise.
Okay.
So the way to adjust it is we stop talking and you turn it open until it opens up and then slowly turn it closes. There it's open. And we stop talking. And now it's set to just enough that as soon as I start talking, it opens. There it's open. That's it. Now say hello.
Oh?
So now it opens. You set it a little too far. It's got about a second delay.
Okay.
So right there, it should be pretty sensitive.
Okay. Checklist. Under. Up. Switch off.
Caution for bird activity on and in the vicinity of the airport. Feedback, hold short instructions and runway assignment. Advise ground control up departure request. Advise on initial contact. Have information echo. Apollo to tower information echo. 2347 Zulu observation. Wind 3208. Visibility 10. Sky clear. Temperature 14, dew point 8. Altimeter 3015. GPS approach in use, landing and departing runway 31. Hazardous weather information available on flight service frequency. Use caution for bird activity on and in the vicinity of the airport. Feedback, hold short.
5. So at 8. Tiny bit right crosswind.
Palo Alto ground, Skyhawk 734 Delta Romeo. Let's see, we're over near the green ramp. I'd like to taxi for VFR departure left crosswind. November 734 Delta Romeo, Palo Alto ground, higher position. Let's see, we're about over by Rossi, and we have information, Delta. Delta Romeo, Roger, runway 31, suggest hangar side. Take a right onto Papa Row across to the run-up, and you can take the left gun part departure. Okay, so hangar side and then right on Papa for Delta Romeo.
Palo Alto ground, Cessna 4940 Papa, back cable road. Information. Echo, we are going to be in the pattern.
That's it.
4940 Palo Alto ground, and if you want to just hangar side, Papa Road terminal side, and use caution for another aircraft taxi into the run-up as well, and confirm information to Echo.
We've got Echo, hangar side, Papa, Yankee, and we have the other aircraft we're going to be following in.
So notice this is on standby.
Runway 31 in use.
So,
Wind 300 at 6.
so that's on standby. Put it on altitude. No, just turn the knob. Oh, you just turned it off. All the way up to altitude. There we go.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Controlling, nobody's around. Brake check.
Good. Okay, I'll check mine. Okay, my brakes are good. You have the brakes.
My brake.
request a flight following to Fresno.
2530 Zulu Palo Alto ground on it. They want to suggest hangar side, Papa Row, terminal side, and code on request to Fresno. Are you going to Foxtrot Alpha Tango or Foxtrot Charlie Hotel?
Foxtrot Alpha Tango. 30 Zulu.
00, Roger. Hangar side, Papa Row, terminal side.
Terminal side, I think, 30 Zulu.
00, if you're on uniform row, you have to take hangar side and then take Papa Row across the terminal side. It's going to be blocked from your current row.
Roger, 30 Zulu.
And over to 30 Zulu, squad code is 4227.
4227, 30 Zulu. Fort El Chihuahua. Can we run up here?
There's a T-bar off your right side there if you can pull to that T-bar.
Gonna take this one. He's gonna take the other one.
And 30 Zulu, just want to right bombard to go out to Fresno, or just want to do a left downwind departure?
Right down on departure, 30 Zulu.
30 Zulu, you can pick the right bombard departure. You'll be turning right crossing at the Dunbar Bridge, and you'll be talking to NorCal to go around the trolley.
Roger, 30 Zulu.
30 Zulu, and it's your discretion if you want to do the right Dunbar and go around the trolley, or you can go on the left downwind through Moffett and through San Jose.
Actually, we will do that, 30 Zulu.
Flight controls whenever you're ready.
I'm clear.
NorCal next tower, give you the frequency in the air.
Roger, 30 Zulu. Ground Air Track 761 Sierra.
Hey. I'm just gonna do one the other way. Okay, good.
Track 761 Sierra, Palo Alto ground on it. Wants to suggest hangar side, Papa Row, terminal side.
Hangar side, Papa Row, terminal side. Running 21. Yeah.
Aerotrack 61 Sierra. So you're on departure request again?
Right crossing, 61 Sierra. Palo Alto Tower, 30 Zulu. Can we get some progressive taxi? We're on Papa and Yankee right now. Papa.
00, Roger. Papa and Yankee. It'll be right there to the left. You'll see two aircraft along the fence. There's some T-bars around there. You can do your run.
Roger, 30 Zulu.
And 30 Zulu, since then the first T-bar is leaving, so you can replace them and just pull forward. You'll see the three T-bars on the right side. You can take the first one.
Are we doing 10 flaps or no flaps?
Whatever you want to do.
Okay, let's we don't do that often. I have the strobes on, nav on, and taxi and peak. Except landing, I have every other lights on. Abort procedure, so we start roading at 55. If you're not in the air by the second taxiway, about to take off. If the engine fails while we are on the runway, we land straight ahead. If the engine fails after we are in the air, we go down on the right on the marsh. Airspeed number 55, we rotate, VX is 62, Y 74, and best glide is 68.
So this should say we're 0 miles from Palo Alto and database is expired. And the message is that we're inside the San Francisco class. Bravo, that's fine. And if I hit this to OBS, 238, that matches. Now it'll say north. 0, good, that's good. Right, OBS off.
All ground?
Yep.
Palo Alto ground, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa, run up complete.
Sierra Papa, hold your contact tower.
Hold short Yankee 1, contact tower, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa. Palo Alto tower, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa, holding short Yankee 1.
Cessna 4 Delta Romeo, contact NorCal approach on 13565, safe flight.
Over to NorCal, 4 Delta Romeo, good day.
Cessna 494 Sierra Papa, Palo Alto tower, right close traffic, runway 31, clear takeoff.
Runway 31, clear for takeoff, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa.
Cessna 3 Lima.
We're a little slow here, nose down, pick up speed.
31 clear for the option, 3 Lima Papa.
Looking for VY 74.
Palo Alto tower, cleared at 2530 Zulu, holding, Yankee 1, ready for departure.
Trinidad 2530 Zulu, Palo Alto tower, hold short runway 31.
Hold short runway 31, 30 Zulu.
Let's just do a couple normal takeoffs and landings to begin with. Think you're holding a little too much up back pressure because we're slow.
Cessna 4 Sierra Papa, runway 31, clear for the option, I'll call you base.
You'll call my base, clear for the option, runway 31, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa.
What's happening right now?
Are slow and high.
Gently. That's a big pitch change. How you doing on trim? What happens if you let go? Need a little bit of down trim. See nose coming up? Just a tiny bit, not too much. You're up to 80 knots now. And we want power so that that if she extends us way out here, we don't end up being right down to the ground before we turn base leg. What's the power setting?
Should be 1900.
Yep, so we're at 17. That's why we're either going low or slowing down.
Check back with her.
Nope.
Turning base, Cessna 4940 Papa.
United at 30 Zulu, left downwind, runway 31, clear takeoff.
Clear to take off for left turn, 31, 30 Zulu.
Palo Alto Tower, base flight 30 is over Atherton and requesting the option. And we have echo.
Base 530, Palo Alto Tower, you can proceed midfield left downwind for runway 31.
Cross midfield, left downwind for, sorry, repeat the runway.
Base 530, enter midfield left downwind for runway 31.
Left downwind for 31, base flight 30.
United at 30 Zulu, I'll call your crosswind. Track 610, right cross runway 31, clear takeoff. Traffic, a Cessna 1.5 mile final.
Clear to take off runway 31.
We are on the right slope.
So what do you need to do?
I need to down, so I'm gonna.
Now you need to throttle back, right? We're white. When you were pushing the nose down to try to descend, the speed's up to 85. Ah, the zen of pattern work.
Palo Alto Tower, Cessna 223 Lima Bravo. Could we get a...
Yeah, left crosswind.
Off-road, straight out to San Carlos.
Yep, straight ahead.
Left or right?
Look at the windsock.
Zulu, crosswind approved.
Coming from the left, and we were on the right side of the runway, which means it's probably coming from the left.
Palo Alto Tower, Cirrus 512 Alpha Mike, inbound over Coyote Hills, and I have echo to Alpha Mike.
Cirrus 512 Alpha Mike, Palo Alto Tower, enter midfield, right downwind for runway 31. Keep the train bridge off or right for traffic outbound.
I will keep the train bridge to the right, inbound runway 31, right traffic to Alpha Mike.
Air track 61's here, keep the train bridge off your right for traffic inbound, Cirrus.
Train bridge off my right.
Hold us in the air. We're floating because we were a little fast. Nose up.
On 121.3.
Look off to the side a little. There you go. Isn't that nice when you get the nose up? Power, right rudder, flaps. Flap those flaps up, a little back pressure. What happened there is we got light on the wheels, and with that crosswind, it weather vaned us into the wind. Good job on going to 10 flaps. Here's one.
We're turning base now, base flight 30.
Baseline 30 on the go. Right close traffic is approved.
Roger, right close traffic is approved, base flight 30.
Cessna 40 Papa, I'll call your crosswind.
Roger, Cessna 4940 Papa.
Interesting. Our closest guy is right there. He was like a little dot, but that airliner over there looks a lot bigger.
Don't see that dot you're talking about. I see them, yeah.
There's a flight instructor technique. Offset pointing.
Cirrus 2 Alpha Mike, number 2, runway 31, can land, I'll call your base.
Number 2 to land, runway 31, you'll call my...
Do I just maintain 800?
Yep. And throttle back when trying. You don't want to.
Crosswind approved, you're following a Cirrus, off your left and slightly behind you at 800 feet in the midfield right down.
Turning crosswind, we have the Cirrus in sight. Cessna 4940 Papa.
So power setting where it needs to be. Trim for speed.
See you later, up here.
And let's turn back toward the airport because we're way out across the bay. What's that left rudder for? Need right rudder.
Well,
You're pushing on the left rudder pedal. The ball went out to the right.
no, I'm not pushing actually.
So where for a moment.
Right, so I'll talk about that in a little.
Okay. My toes are resting on the bottom of the pedal. So I could feel the left pedal come out. That means you're pushing on the right. I could feel the pedals move.
Okay.
RPM's low, altitude's high, speed is slow.
2 Alpha Mike, base approved, 1 departure, prior arrival, Cessna.
Alright, base turn to Alpha Mike.
Cessna 4 Sierra Papa, number 2, follow Sirius right base, runway 31, click the option.
Number 2, here for the options, runway 31, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa.
Name of Papa, straight out, runway 31, click takeoff.
3 Lima Papa, clear for takeoff, runway 31.
Yeah, a little down trim, just a tiny bit. We're downwind of beam, our guy is on final, but he's almost 2 miles out. Mile and a half. Yep.
Yeah, so it feels like the plane less than usual right rudder.
Okay. Now it could be that when they did all that work, they changed some springs out, so it has a different feel to it. There's our traffic. We're going to be turning soon, so we could throttle back.
Extended, right? So
Yeah, he's past us. We could probably turn, even if he goes full length. I think we'll have enough time.
Lake Elizabeth at 3,300 with Echo.
Skyline 15 Mike Victor, follow Tower under midfield, right down for runway 31.
Midfield, right downwind, 31, 5 by Victor.
Cessna 3 Lima Papa, contact San Carlos Tower, 119.0, safe flight.
Contact San Carlos Tower, 3 Lima Papa.
Here's 2 Alpha Mike, left at the end, taxi via Zulu, Yankee 2, Juliet. Monitor ground, Happy New Year's.
Yankee 2, monitor ground. Happy New Year to you. Definitely.
Cessna 5 Mike Victor, traffic to your 1 o'clock, about 3 miles. Appears orbiting in the vicinity, 1,900, typo known.
Alright, on the screen, negative contact, 5 Mike Victor.
Skyline 5 Mike Victor, roger.
power too soon.
That was fine.
Sabria 443 Alpha Charlie, follow the Tower, hold short, runway 31, number 2.
Still looking over the nose. Got to be looking over there. Little back pressure. All right, there you go.
Takeoff 3-1, stay flight 30.
Cessna 4 Sierra Papa, you can either extend to the outer bridge for right close traffic or make an early right crossing.
Let's turn.
We'll turn early, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa.
Skyline 5 Mike Victor, you'll be following a Cessna right crosswind over Cooley Landing.
We're looking 5 Mike Victor.
Cessna 4 Sierra Papa, number 1, runway 31, click the option.
Number 1, clear for the option, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa. Runway 31.
Skyline 5 Mike Victor, number 2, follow Cessna approaching midfield, right down, runway 31, go to land.
Flight to land, following airplane on downwind, 5 Mike Victor.
Baseline 30, I'll call your crosswind.
There's 800. Throttle back. throttle back. We're number one.
Copy 6 to Golf. Verify you said 8 is information Echo.
I have information Echo, 5060 Golf.
Flight 30, crosswind is approved. You're following the Skyline, enter midfield right down at 700 feet.
We will look for him, and crosswind is approved.
You're a little high on power, and I think you're pushing down to come down a little because we're 5 knots fast. Remember, we have a left crosswind, so you have to slow this turn down or you'll end up lining up on the right side of the runway.
Follow short final now.
Flight 5 Victor. This is for us, Bay 30.
Flight 30, roger. Number 3, runway 31, clear for the option.
Number 3, clear for the option, Bay 30.
That's better, huh? If you level the wings, the crosswind will blow us right back to the center line. That's looking better. You're crabbed a little left. You need a little right rudder. Let the wind blow us a little back to the center line and just a little left wing down. That's nice. Nose down just a touch. You're a little nose high. Still nose high. We're getting very slow. Sort of look off to that 30, 45 or so. Isn't it amazing how that works? Nice on the right rudder. Good timing. No shimmy so far, huh?
No shimmy so far.
We should try getting heavy braking on one of these.
Okay. Flaps, it's plane flying so fast.
Well, it's not speed, it's angle. Not rate of climb. The rate of climb's actually a little lower.
Okay.
Strawberry 3 Alpha Charlie, traffic off your right side, about 1.5 miles eastbound, 1,100 is a Skyhawk.
Looking 3 Alpha Charlie.
I'm going to lead that power reduction a little earlier. See how we're going 100 feet high? And you don't hold the nose up. Let it come down because that's what we want it to do. It's a throttle back and a little up trim and we should get level at 75 knots. The zen of pattern work.
West of Forest here, Papa number 2, follow Cessna right base to Pano, runway 31, clear for the option.
Number 2, and we'll follow the Cessna. We have it inside Cessna 4940 Papa, runway 31.
Skyline 5 Mike Victor, taxi to the ramp via Zulu, Yankee 2, Juliet, Modern Ground, Happy New Year's.
Zulu, Yankee 2, Juliet. Happy New Year. 5 Mike Victor.
We're 50 feet high for a downwind to beam. We're 250 feet high for the base leg. And our power is 200 RPM too high.
Medevac helicopter 1450, uniform pilot.
You look at the runway. How does that look?
5.
Right, and our speed is high because you're trying to get down a little bit. So throttle back a little more. We got 20 flaps, we do.
3 Alpha Charlie, frequency change approved.
3 Alpha Charlie.
You're adding power. We're already white. See it? Oh, actually, so that was fine on the power, my mistake.
530, I'll call you cross it.
I heard the RPM come up, but we're set low. That's
I just added.
yeah. So you could go full flaps. Nose down, trim down, and then wait. Goes down a little bit more. You're getting a little ground shy. We're fine. You don't want to bleed the speed, right? We want to hold it down to about here. And now our round out. Look off to the side a little bit. That's better. Oh, that looks so good. Oh, how nice. Nice nose high landing. Got to do the braking. Get a nice short landing. We could have done the braking on that one. I'll remind you next time.
Approved, falls to Tower midfield, 1,200.
We're looking at crosswind approved, baseline 30.
That's 40 Papa, quality Cessna, the crosswind turn.
Cessna 49 and Fort Sierra Papa, we have the aircraft in crosswind in sight.
Traffic inside for baseline 30.
Baseline 30, roger, number 2, runway 31, clear the option.
Number 2 clear for the option, baseline 30.
Cessna 40 Papa, number 3, runway 31, clear the option.
Number 3, clear for the option, runway 31. Cessna 49 Fort Sierra Papa. Turn.
Well, he's right there, so wait. And now we could turn.
Let him pass.
Throttle back a little earlier. We're going through pattern altitude. That time you caught it nicely. Okay. He's flying a pretty wide pattern.
Yeah.
We're also wide.
Well, I think I was trying to follow him,
Yeah,
which I
don't.
should not have.
You know, somebody else is, wants to fly to Los Angeles on his downwind. And could we make the runway from here?
No, like...
So let's make an S turn and get our downwind a little closer. That's a lot of heading change. We don't need to go very long this way, just a few seconds. And now we're about almost back to a normal downwind width. Use a big aileron input. You should also be using an appropriate rudder input, right? And look, so I can't see forward. We're nose high. We're going to be slow. Oh, look, we're slow. How about that? So it looks like he's got about a normal pattern distance. So we could just go a few seconds and then throttle back, and we'll probably be on a reasonable glide slope. So we could throttle back now. Yeah, he's just about a normal base leg distance. We're past him. Real subtle thing, rudder should just slightly lead the aileron. Just a tiny bit. Takes a little time to work, so to get enough deflection to work. So if it's kind of like you start to move the rudder and then start to move the aileron, you'll get a better result. Rather than the other way around of aileron then rudder. You're not breaking squelch, say again?
Saying this time I'm going to come low, I think.
Well, is that a red? Yep, you're red. We are low, and you turned a little early. Small amount of power, doesn't take much. That's more than enough. There's white, red. And we're on the right side because you turned early with the left crosswind. bring the, now that we're on the glide slope, you could bring the power back to where it should be. I would have done power then flaps, but that's fine. It's almost the same. We're just a few knots slow. So trim for it, let go, see if you're trimmed. You need a little up trim. See, just not much, and a tiny bit of power for a few seconds. Yeah, you're, okay, yeah, you can go full flaps. Fine. Nose down a little, trim down a little, power off. That's where you want to be. Let's see if we can do our hard braking this time. Sort of look off to the side. Okay, I got the brakes. That's pretty good. That's not bad at all. Okay, power up. No, we don't have to turn off. You can take off. We got 10 flaps. 40, 45, 50, and rotate. Excellent. Got that problem.
Yep.
That was just about as hard as we could brake without locking the brakes up, knocking the tires up. That is a successful repair.
Does that mean they're gonna not change the strut?
It might need it anyway. That might have been independent, but that wasn't making the shimmy worse. You know, sometimes when you investigate one problem, you find another.
Number 2, clear for the option, Cessna 4940 Papa.
Runway 31.
And runway 31, Cessna 4940 Papa.
For all you have to do is once she calls us 4 Sierra Papa, we can also say 4 Sierra Papa. Cessna 4 Sierra Papa. How's our heading look here? Yeah, we were angled way too far to the right. So what's going on here? You can't push the nose down. You're just going through the white arc flap limit. You got to go power off and get us back to 70 knots, which we should be at it with 10 flaps. So we should be up here, and that tells us we can go to full flaps. You can't make the airplane come down more steeply by pushing the nose down. Doesn't work. Your problem was too much power. If you just push the nose down, you're going to trade altitude for speed, and we're going too fast.
think I'm too late.
Yep. Let it roll for a bit and then do some hard braking at the end. Not going really fast enough to do any hard braking, but you know, give it some braking. Even without back pressure, it's not shimmying. That's good.
Taxi back, Cessna 4940 Sierra Papa will advise when we terminate. Roger, Cessna 4940 Sierra Papa.
You're doing my trick. You're reading it back before she tells you to do it. Did you get that?
Sorry.
Normally, when you say we're taxiing back, she'll say to you, taxi back each time, advise terminating. So she said taxi back, and you said taxiing back will advise terminating.
Right.
So you were reading back the advise terminating before she told you.
Yeah, because she does that.
But she does it every time.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's good. You're in her head. You know what she's gonna say.
Right.
That's a you're a step ahead comment. That's nice. It's good. When I do that at Hayward, the guy says thank you.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Because he said, thank you for not having me to tell you to do it. It's easier to say thank you than read me the whole thing. So it's nice when you can anticipate what they're going to say and show that you know what's happening.
Familiar.
Yeah, when you get familiar, you can do that.
Hear me?
If you can't hear you, I can't hear you, and I just readjusted the squelch a little.
Okay. Now, can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you hear you? If you can hear you, I can hear you, usually.
I can hear myself, yeah.
There you go.
So, do I give way to him, or
No, he gives way to us. We can't get out of the way from here. And we don't have to get too close. He'll just wait. You don't need this much power. So how did we end up so high there?
Because I was late on power setting.
Yep. You were watching him,
Right.
and instead of thinking about where you needed to be vertically,
Right.
you were just holding altitude. So that's something you got to keep in mind when we're extending is when can we descend? Whenever they give you an extension, or I'll call your base, makes it much harder because you don't know where you can descend.
Yep.
It's just like great when we get to our normal base and they say base turns approved and we're still at pattern altitude. Okay, we're high. Thank you very much for screwing up my pattern for no benefit.
Right. I'm keeping 10 flaps.
Right.
I'd set the trim, and the mixture is red, so as mixture filled, and flaps, we are good. takeoff, runway 31, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa. We'll follow the other Cessna.
Flight 30, contact San Carlos Tower 190.0.
Over the tower, bay flight 30.
We're on the brakes, no brakes.
Are we good to take off?
Yep, we're cleared, right?
Yeah.
Yankee 1 Yankee Kilo, break. Cessna 4 Juliet Charlie, follow the up 1 Cessna, runway 31, clear takeoff.
Follow the upwind traffic, 31 clear for takeoff, for Juliet Charlie. Which direction do you want me to go, left or right?
Right, please. Yankee 1 Yankee Kilo, runway 31, clear land, 1 departure prior arrival, Cessna, take the runway now.
1 Yankee Kilo, clear land.
Cessna 05, turn cross.
Turning cross, 05.
Cessna 21901 at Victor, follow the tower, hold short runway 31 if you're on frequency.
25 Pattern 1 Victor, holding short 31.
Cessna 40 Papa, your traffic follows turning right, crosswind to the...
I'll take it. Traffic in sight, Cessna 4 Sierra Papa. We'd like to get a few short approaches in over the next few patterns whenever you can get them in, no rush.
I'll try to squeeze you in for a couple.
Thank you.
Follow the tower we are 443 Alpha Charlie, 1 mile to the southwest of Slack, inbound.
So let's give him a few seconds after he passes us.
Charlie, follow.
That'll give us a little more timing. So we'll give him maybe 10 seconds.
Close left downwind for 313 Alpha Charlie.
Cessna 05, that was you calling for the short approach, correct?
Nope, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa. We can turn now.
Cessna 05, runway 31,
Whoop.
space.
No call on base 05.
With Cessna 4 Sierra Papa, what are the short approaches?
Yes, ma'am.
Yankee 1 Yankee Kilo, taxi via Zulu, Yankee 2, your discretion, monitor ground, high news.
Zulu Yankee 2 and my discretion, 1 Yankee Kilo, thanks for grade 2, 2020.
Aye.
Cessna 4 Sierra Papa, your number 1, runway 31, clear for the option, short approach is approved.
Number 1, clear for the option, runway 31, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa.
November 901.
Okay, so we could leave the flaps up. We're a little high, so you could throttle back a little bit. You might want to get a little closer because we're going to be power off.
Charlie, I'll call your base.
You call my base for Juliet Charlie.
Let's throttle back a little. We don't want to pick up speed.
60 at your
Whoop.
for traffic over San Carlos, inbound on for the left down 1,800 to Saratoga.
What's that for 3 Alpha Charlie?
Copy 3 Alpha Charlie, affirmative. Once you
Oh.
proceed to Stanford, if you can make 1 right 360 for spacing.
Cover the 360 at Stanford 3 Alpha Charlie.
Cessna 05, if you can tighten in your downwind, please. You're encroaching on them off at the departure corridor.
Tightening my downwind, yes, 05.
Cessna 05, your base is approved. Your number 2.
Okay, power off.
3-1 numbers, they're doing a
Power off. We're doing a short approach inside him.
Sending base, clear for option 3 west, number 2, 05.
Cessna 4 Juliet Charlie, your number 3 following a Cessna turning right base just abeam the amphitheater, runway 31, clear for the option.
We're very slow. You're pulling the nose up. We should get the speed, the nose down to normal 75 knots.
Victor, if you can start your early left crosswind for traffic, Saratoga inbound.
91 Victor, turning crosswind, 2596.
You think you can make it from here?
Follow the tower, Saratoga.
I think if I go directly
Yeah,
to
so bring the flaps back up, nose down a little bit, and go right for the numbers. Really, maybe go right for the physical end of the runway.
About 3 miles on the left cross.
So we got to get the nose down. We're well below best glide speed. We're below normal approach speed, and that's going to make our altitude, our descent angle steeper. So this is better. Let's come a little left.
Whistler 360, you're going to be following at Saratoga, just over the cement plant, entering on the left.
This is going to be a little tight, but let's see how low we can take it.
Booking 3 Alpha Charlie. Tower, Cessna 714 Juliet Charlie, can I?
All right, so we're going to make, we have enough distance. Let's go a few more seconds. Don't bring the nose up yet. Okay, let's start turning right. And let's go to 10 flaps. A little more turn. Okay, let's go. I got the flaps up.
2 miles is a Citabria at 1,900, also inbound.
Well, that was interesting, huh?
Yep.
Citabria, 3 Alpha Charlie, about
Not exactly how we want to do it, but we made it.
Yeah.
2 miles at 1,100. So just maybe 10 degrees turn to the left to follow.
Turning 10 degrees to the left and still looking for Alpha Charlie.
So why do you...
Papa, I'll call you crosswind.
You'll call the crosswind for Sierra Papa. So why do you think we were so low?
We were low because we extended.
No, we didn't extend. We actually turned it about 20 to 30 degrees past the end of the runway. Yeah, she's calling the crosswind.
Okay. I don't know.
Kilo Papa,
So the first thing is we were on a pretty wide downwind.
53 Kilo Papa.
The second thing is we have a crosswind on base leg. Third is you got to slow. Now normally for power, there's altitude, so throttle back.
Copy 3 Alpha Charlie, then traffic to follow is now to your 12 to 1 o'clock, about 1.5 miles. Do you have him in sight, 900 feet?
So,
By the airport now, right? For 3 Alpha Charlie.
so normally if we're, I'm just trying to listen while I'm talking.
Cessna 085, runway 31, taxi back east, time via Zulu, remain my frequency, about terminating.
Little less power because we're no flap.
Cessna 4 Sierra Papa, turn crosswind.
Turning crosswind for Sierra Papa. So normally when we're flying a power off approach, if we're downwind to beam at a reasonable altitude, we can just fly normal pattern speed. We don't want to go to best glide because it's not a function of being able to make the runway. We've got the runway. We have enough altitude. Do we have enough controllability is the question. Now, if we're low and we need to really go as far as we can, we'd use best glide only if there's no wind. If we have a wind, we have to fly a little faster. About a third of the wind velocity. So we got about 7 or 8 knots of wind, so something like 3 knots faster, so 71.
Freeze, fall on the Cessna just outside the amphitheater on a straight air runway 31 to land.
Alright, number 3 behind the Cessna.
So we're not going to get a short approach this time. I don't think. So when we looked low, we went right for the end of the runway, cutting off all that extra distance.
Cessna 734 Delta Romeo, follow the
And with no flaps, we go a lot further.
So why did you have, like, could we have landed without flaps?
Yep.
Just
But
trying to cut down the...
but what happened there? Once we reached the runway, and let's come a little left now, so we're at the right distance.
Traffic to follow, short final for 3 Alpha Charlie.
Copy 3 Alpha Charlie, negative. Extend your downwind, sir. You're going to be
Come a little left.
Saratoga.
If we don't have the nav, we do have nav lights on, right?
Charlie, roger. Your number.
Yeah, nav lights on.
How about landing light? We got that. Okay, we're
Oh,
good.
well, only taxi, not landing.
You want only landing, not taxi. Taxi lights are expensive.
Cessna 0 Sierra Papa, make a right 360 for spacing, please. Right 360, 0 Sierra Papa. Cessna 4 Sierra Papa, you're at number 4 now, following the Citabria in the left downwind, runway 31, clear for Yasin.
Number 4, follow the Citabria. We're looking for it on runway 31, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa.
He should be, there he is. Yep, he's above us. Nice thing about this, I can see he's 400 feet above us. He should be above the horizon line. That should be him.
Left wing, just head slightly to your left.
Traffic inside 3 Alpha Charlie.
So, the
That Citabria is going to be turning left base here momentarily. Should be just to be in the amphitheater.
got him in sight. 4 Sierra Papa. So the descent angle is so much lower. He's just on the base.
I see him.
Yeah.
But are we going? Are we okay? Going
Yeah. Well,
into
she said yes. So she's telling sometimes we can, sometimes we can't, but this time we can. So there he's on base, and he's slower than us. So unless she said something, we want to go out a little further. I'm going to raise the wing for just a second. Okay, I just wanted to see him. I think we could turn. And you're a little slow, which is actually a good thing here. Now, it's getting really dark in the cockpit, so let's turn all 4 of these knobs all the way up. And it's the inner and the outer all up. Let me make sure you got them all. You missed that inner one. Okay, so the little silver part's an inner knob. And we are still pretty slow, so let's get back to our normal approach speed here. Were you doing that intentionally to stay behind the Citabria?
Well, yeah.
Well, that's good, because they're coming down the final at about 65. But look at where we are. The wind has blown us all to kept us from making our base all the way to the final. So we're to the right of the final approach course. Anyway, one more time I'll try to say, with no flap, our descent angle is so much flatter than we're normally used to. We make the runway, and then we land long. And we barely make it, but we land long. So once you've got the runway made, if you get out as much flap as you can, it helps keep you from landing too long once you've made that field. A little more power. 1400 should be nominal. And 75 knots. And let's wait till we get to our normal base leg position. So we got to go in like at least a half mile before we go to 20 flaps. So that's an important thing to know if you ever have to land in a field and you're barely going to make it. Once you've clearly cleared the fence, and it's a short field, get the flaps out so you don't end up flying all the way down the field with no flaps. This is a very pretty looking stable approach you got now. Nothing's happening. That's what you'd like it to be. But you're already just a little bit slow. We're still at 10 flaps, right?
Yeah.
We should be at 75. We're at 70, and you're putting some up trim in. So when we go to 20 flaps, we'll put in a little down trim and keep it at 70. But we're starting to get just a little bit low. It says white red on the PAPI. There might have been something there. So now our aim point's around where you could go to 20. And he'll clear at the second turnoff. We're good. Nicely timed. Nose down and trim down. Trim up a tiny bit. So we, well, actually trim down was correct. When you look over the nose, we thump down. When you look to the left, we land smoothly.
I noticed that.
The airplane teaches you by going whack when you do it wrong. Bacon. Upwind auto bridge, left traffic to the 4 Sierra Papa.
I don't hear them.
Yeah, he was a little lower on volume.
Sorry, clear for the crosswind?
No, upwind to the auto bridge, then left traffic.
Oh, this time left traffic.
Yep.
Because?
He doesn't say but why.
Okay.
Cessna 8500 Papa left when able, traffic is short final on Zulu contact ground.
00 Papa.
1,000 feet for left traffic.
085 number 3, follow traffic on
All the way back to full power. Let's climb it up.
Number 331 clear for the option 085 and traffic sight.
Cessna 40 Papa turn left crosswind.
Turning cross left confluence, Cessna 4940 Papa.
Remember, we're in a climb, so you still need a little right rudder. So much subtlety in flying an airplane. And 10 flaps. That extra 100 RPM and no flaps makes us high. Even now, there are a few cars in the lot at Facebook. Gotta wonder whether the guys are working or they left their broken down cars there.
November 4 Juliet Charlie, right crosswind at the Dunbar Bridge.
Right crosswind on the Stockton.
We stay on the left.
Look at the
of-
runway. Don't worry about the freeway. Fly normal distance from the runway.
Cessna 4940 Papa number 2, follow Cessna right base runway B1 clear for the option.
Number 2, clear for the option, Cessna 4940 Papa, and we'll look for the traffic.
November 4 Delta Romeo left at Charlie available on Zulu contact ground.
Right there, it looked like you were pitching down a little to lose altitude, and what you really wanted to do was throttle back a little. You gained some speed, you let go, the nose came right back up. It's like a storage mechanism. If you push down, you speed up, you let go, you go right back up again.
145 Sierra uniform to Hello stoplight to come to a high hover and then make a left crosswind.
High school physics. Straight off of kinetic to potential, it can go back and forth.
Are we too close?
Nope.
Cessna, report we have traffic in sight.
This is just about where you want to be. It looks a little closer because you're looking at the left side.
Visual separation. Departure on the spot will be at your own risk. Remain on the side of the extended center line. Balance summary 3014.
14 in the meter will stay south of the center line side Sierra uniform. Thanks.
Cessna 4940 Papa unit number 1 now. Use caution for a helicopter departing from the spot.
Number 1, and we have the helicopter inside, Cessna 4940 Papa.
Okay, pull the power, make the runway. Power to idle, make the runway.
Runway 31 clear to land. Report traffic in sight.
Land number 2, runway 31, Wilco systems here.
Cessna 085, taxi back or terminate.
Taxi back from 1 motion 05.
November 4 Juliet Charlie number 3, follow Aerotrek in the right downwind, just past the tower. Runway 31 clear for the option.
Cessna 331 clear for the option for Julia Charlie. Okay, traffic in sight.
Let's not go this far left. I don't want to fly right over the terminal building and the helicopter.
Okay.
You're using power now. If you're going to use power, go back to a normal base,
Okay.
a normal final.
Cessna 085, hold short runway 31.
Horizontal 31 05.
Make it a normal landing, normal flap use. Careful, you went power off first, then flaps, so likelihood is you'll get a little slow, but you're all right now. You're into the... Just amazing how well that works. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you know, gee, why didn't Steve say that more than 500 times? I love that.
So unless this, so we turn right this time,
Yeah, yeah.
unless they say.
I'll ask. 4 Sierra Papa back to normal right traffic. Yep. Reminder, we're trying to get a few more short approaches in 4 Sierra Papa.
Happening with me is I'm putting a lot of right rudder, more than like it has become sensitive, so that's why my ball goes to the left.
Well, let me fly the airplane for just a moment.
Okay.
Are we going to get a short approach? Yeah, I think we will. I'm not doing anything. I don't feel it.
No, so I'll explain to you on the ground.
Okay. Let's go power off. We're number 1. Power off. 4 Sierra Papa, number 131, short approach, cleared for the option. Give yourself a little bit of a final. We're not so low that we have to go right for the numbers. And those low turns are a little scary. This is working better. So we're going to be able to turn and be able to get some flap out. See, now we're plenty high. And you could go to a normal flap, or we'll go way down the runway. Gently, right, don't over control. A little over control, not too bad.
What was it?
Upwind to the auto bridge, Cessna 4 Sierra Papa.
Can I increase his volume? Where do I do that?
Yeah. So let's do it here. That should be enough, and I'll turn my headset down a little so it's not too loud for me. He's not as loud nor as shrill as she was, so need a little more volume to hear him. I think the human male ear is more attentive to the female voice, because if you don't listen to your mate, she'll kill you. Or at least you'll be miserable, so it's a good survival adaptation.
Well, to be fair, she is fairly clear and loud.
Yeah. She could speak a little, be holding the mic a little closer.
Yeah.
But in general, it's known that men are more sensitive to hearing women's voices.
I can take that. Yeah.
We don't come with a user manual.
Sorry.
A few more seconds. Now we can turn. And you can turn all the way to the downwind because we get pretty wide out here. Nose up a little. Look at the nose slicing down. That's that little bit of back pressure in the turn. Just continue that nice turn rate. That's looking pretty nice. Love those sweeping big turns. See how wide we are? So we have to angle back in a little bit to join the normal downwind distance. Two or three more. It'll be an hour and a half. We're a little bit between an hour, 1.5 and 1.6, but 3 should get us maybe about 0.6, and we'll have what'll that be, about 14 circuits. Not too bad for Palo Alto.
It's still a little bit wide.
Yep. So make a correction, a little less turn.
For the option, Cessna 4940 Papa, runway 31.
Okay, do you want flaps up? Little up trim so we don't nose down. All right, let's go power to idle. We're looking for normal approach speed, should be 75 knots. Don't want to get too slow, because too slow is a steeper descent. And you have to decide when we can turn. Wait, we're pretty low here. I wouldn't want to go any more flap now. They're slow, nose down a little bit. Are?
Number 331 clear for the option, 4 Julia Charlie.
So a couple things there.
Right.
We were not real high, and we were just barely going to make the end of the runway, and you went to 10 flaps. Now, you could have kept us at 0 and gone a little further left to join the final a little further out, and waited a little bit on flaps so we could be down the runway a little. You don't want to be aiming to land right at the numbers, because if you're short, you're in trouble. So try to land a little further down the runway.
Okay.
For the private pilot flight test, there's no accuracy requirement. You just got to not be short. Crosswind auto bridge, 4 Sierra Papa. So aim to land longer, and once you're on final and you're sure you're going to make the runway, you could get a little more draggy and land shorter. But once you're too low, you're toast. You can't do anything. So don't get too low.
So what I was trying to do there is like reduce my sink rate?
Well, and what should the sink, why did you want to do that? Why is that a factor? Let's go this way a little bit so we don't get so far out across the bay. What does reduced sink rate do for us?
Give me more time.
It doesn't. If you slow down in an effort to reduce your sink rate, the L over D decreases. So we might have more time, but we have less distance. Yeah, we can turn. Sink rate is not a factor here.
Okay.
It's what your glide ratio is. Can you make it or not? Let's take a quick look. I think we should probably turn all the way. Oh yeah, we got to turn all the way back in. If we're at 75 and we're at 9 to 1, we're coming down a little over 800 feet a minute. There's no reducing that. If you reduce that,
Right.
then you'll have a lower sink rate, but you'll have a steeper descent angle. We have no instrument for angle. So you can't optimize for glide ratio based on descent rate.
Well, not descent rate. I think I meant to say the angle. So,
Well, once we're at best glide, that's as flat as we can go
okay.
through the air. And if we have a headwind, we have to increase speed a little bit to get best glide distance across the ground. Any reduction in that, and you end up coming down more steeply. Two more I think will do it. And it'll be just about dark. It's getting a little hard to do these with so little light. In terms of glide distance, it's better to be a couple of knots fast than a couple of knots slow. So 68's best glide at max gross. We're probably we're number one. Okay.
Pay for the option. Cessna 494 Sierra Papa. We'll look for the
Power off. Power off. Try to land at or past the PAPI light. There's power off. Gas mixture seatbelt. Remember, we can come in pretty steep. So if you come, with full flaps and a slip, we can come down very steeply. Interesting, when we were over at Tracy, you were coming in high all the time.
Right.
And today it's been largely low. And this is looking much better, and you can just continue on the base leg. We don't have to turn early. You don't need to turn early. Go a little further. Remember, we have a headwind here. Let me make sure we're still at idle power. Still turning base a little early.
Okay.
Turning fine a little early. Remember, we're trying to land at or past the PAPI.
I see.
So,
Okay.
and we're not real high for that.
Right.
Still turning a little early. We're not on the center line yet. And that's as slow as you want to go. We got to keep holding it. We're going to make the runway, but we're not going to be very long. Don't slow down yet. Nose down a little bit. You can't stretch the glide by slowing down. Now we've got it made. You could go a little flap. Ooh, watch that sink rate. As you looked over, you kind of let the nose come down. And you see how much longer we went just by landing 10 flaps?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go around for one more.
Number 2, free one clear for the option for Julia Charlie.
Yeah, that'll put us just about 1.5 hours.
Crosswind, right crosswind at Train Bridge, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa.
second further we go upwind gives us 2 more seconds of separation. And now we can turn. We're getting a little nose down here, so you can keep the bank angle in, but just a little more back pressure. Let's try to come in a little high so that you can go to full flaps on final and not be just barely making it. We're trying to find a place between our steepest descent and our shallowest descent. We'd like to be in the middle so we have some room to adjust if we're not correct.
I think the mistake I made last time, I was
Sierra Papa number 3, runway 91, clear for the option.
clear for the option, number 3, runway 31, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa.
Juliet Charlie, S turns are approved.
I don't think we're going to get a short approach here.
Okay.
Look how close those two guys are.
Yeah.
Let's come a little left.
Right, so I was not aiming for the light.
Ah.
I was aiming for the number still, although you said that.
It's a habit.
It's a habit, yes.
Let's hold the altitude here and let's come a little left. And we... Tell you what, let's leave the power in for a little bit. Okay, power off and turn when you think you can make the runway. And again, the PAPI light's what you're aiming for. Careful on that pitch, we're getting slow. Weren't quite at idle. So you could turn like toward like a dog leg right now.
4610, taxi back at terminating. 610, transport to Zulu Yankee 2, monitor ground.
Now keep going on this heading. Roll out right here. Let's get onto the final. A little easier to judge once we're on the final. Now we see we got plenty of altitude, but we're wait, don't go to flaps yet. We're still trying to make the PAPI light.
Right.
Remember, we can come down pretty steep. Turning too early, you want to get established on the final so you can see where you're going. We're not all that high. Don't get any slower. Still want to keep going this way. Now we can turn the final. Now it's easy to see our lineup. And now you could go to flaps, and you could go all the way to full. But nose down a little, and then watch your round out and flare. Don't put nose down too much. To look off to the side a little and hold us up, hold us up, and hold us up. That's good, and that's it. We're going to be just about an hour and a half now. Oop, we'll go to the end. Look at that. We got the tires to squeal without any nose wheel shimmy. Hallelujah, praise the Lord, and our mechanics.
I just called the tower.
Just tell them we're terminating.
Follow to tower, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa, terminating, requesting taxi to Cable Road.
Use caution for a large flock of birds, left or right, crossing the pond.
Sir?
Contact ground.
Contact ground, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa. Thank you for your help.
Aero 4 Juliet Charlie number 2, runway 91, clear for the option.
Bird
Contact ground.
Bird thing was not for us, right?
No, it was for him on final, so he wouldn't smack that. We'd have an idea there were birds there. Good call, contact ground.
Contact ground before moving the plane?
Let's just call them now while we're taxiing, and I'll explain that in a moment.
Follow to ground, Cessna 494 Sierra Papa, at Zulu, requesting taxi to Cable Road.
494 Sierra Papa, out to ground, taxi ran Zulu Yankee 2.
Zulu Yankee 2, Cessna 494
typically, when you come off a runway, you'd come to a stop and tell them what you want to do. And in this case, he says contact ground. We contact ground without taxi. But in this situation, since we had the taxi back each time, we're sort of understood to be able to taxi, so we could start taxiing and then modify the instruction with ground. That was for Sierra Papa again, so Juliet Yankee 2, and we're monitoring ground.
Right downwind, just past the tower, runway 21, clear to land.
Might have blocked.
And aircraft calm pilot, so ground taken.
Oh, we might have blocked that last one. For Sierra Papa, we're Zulu Yankee 2, monitor ground. I'd come a little bit light and a little bit left-right so we don't kick up a big spray. So we don't get wet getting out of the airplane.
Maybe it was the shimmy dampener.
They replaced several things. Who knows?
Huh.
The one way of doing maintenance is if you suspect a bunch of different things, you can replace them one at a time until the problem goes away. And that way you don't have to figure out which thing it was. And if they're inexpensive things, sometimes it's cheaper to replace the inexpensive parts than to figure it out, because the figuring out takes lots of maintenance time. That damn large shimmy damper is like $800 last I checked. It might even be $1,000. So that's not a cheap thing to fix. But, or to replace, I should say. But they've already been through a bunch of other stuff. So if they thought they knew what it was and replaced a bunch of things and they didn't get it, well, then you got to replace the more expensive stuff.
Give way to these?
Nope. They got out of the way of us, and airplanes, you don't want to hit somebody who's being a jerk, but airplanes have the right of way over over pedestrians on the surface of an airport.